My name is Marcus. I've always been a skeptic. You know the type. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in bad omens. If there's a noise, it's the house settling. If a door opens, it's a draft. I've always been proud of that logical, grounded side of myself, but that logic is exactly what almost got me killed. This started about 6 months ago, right after I moved into a new apartment complex on the north side of the city. It wasn't a luxury building, but it was decent. It was an older building with high ceilings and those thick plaster walls that usually do a great job of blocking out the neighbors. I lived on the ground floor, Unit 1B. It was spacious, quiet, and for the first 2 months, it was perfect. But slowly, my mornings started to change. I've always been a heavy sleeper. I'm the kind of guy who hits the pillow and is out cold. But I started waking up feeling destroyed. I don't mean just groggy. I mean physically exhausted, like I had run a marathon in my sleep. My limbs felt heavy, my eyes burned, and I had these splitting migraines right behind my temples. At first, I blamed my job. I work in logistics, and it was a busy season. I figured the stress was just manifesting physically. I started taking melatonin, drinking chamomile tea, doing all the sleep hygiene stuff the internet tells you to do, but nothing worked. In fact, it got worse. Then came the sore throats. Every morning, I'd wake up with my throat feeling raw, like I had been screaming, or like I had swallowed a handful of sand. I went to a walk-in clinic, thinking maybe I had strep or mono. The doctor looked down my throat, frowned, and told me it was just dryness. He suggested I buy a humidifier and drink more water. So I adjusted my routine. I bought a humidifier, and I started keeping a large pint glass of ice water on my nightstand. Every night, right before I turned off the lamp, I would fill that glass to the brim. That's when I started noticing the glitches. It began with the water. I would wake up, throat burning, reach for the glass, and it would be empty. Bone dry. Not a drop left. I had absolutely no memory of waking up to drink it. I figured I must be doing it in a semi-conscious state. But then, it wasn't just the water. One Tuesday morning, I woke up to find the bathroom light blazing. I live alone. I know for a fact I turned it off. 2 days later, my front door was unlocked. I am obsessive about locking the deadbolt. I checked it 3 times before bed. A week after that, I found my car keys, which I always leave in a bowl by the door, sitting on the kitchen counter next to the stove. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. I actually Googled early onset dementia at 3 a.m. one night. I felt like I was being gaslit by my own brain. The only logical explanation was sleepwalking. I had never sleepwalked as a kid, but apparently stress can trigger it in adults. It explained the exhaustion, the moving objects, the unlocked doors. It fit. So I decided to test the theory. I didn't want to spend money on a camera system yet, so I went to the App Store and downloaded one of those sleep tracker apps. I think it was called Sleep Talker or something similar. The way it works is simple. It calibrates to the background noise of your room, the hum of the fridge, the traffic outside, and then it only hits record when it detects a spike in decibels, motion, talking, or loud noises. The first 3 nights were uneventful. I woke up, checked the app, and saw a few recordings. Mostly just me shifting in the sheets, a couple of heavy snores, and one clip of a police siren passing by outside. I actually felt relieved. I thought, okay, maybe I'm just overreacting. But then came the 4th night. I remember that night vividly because it was dead silent. No wind, no traffic. I filled my water glass, placed it on the coaster, plugged my phone into the charger on the nightstand, and opened the app. I set the sensitivity to high, placed the phone screen down next to my pillow, and drifted off. I woke up the next morning, feeling worse than ever. My throat was on fire. My head was pounding so hard, I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I reached for the water glass. Empty. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I grabbed my phone. The battery was at 100%. I opened the app. It had recorded 14 events. My hands started shaking as I looked at the timestamps. They started at 2:15 a.m. and went all the way to 4:45 a.m. 2.5 hours of activity. I sat up in bed, the morning sun streaming through the blinds, and pressed play on the first clip. There was silence for the first few seconds. Then a distinct sound. It was the sound of my bedroom door handle turning and the door slowly opening. I felt a chill run down my spine. My bedroom door latches firmly. It doesn't drift open on its own. Then, footsteps. But not normal footsteps. It sounded like socks dragging on the carpet. The sound moved from the doorway toward the foot of my bed. Then, the clip ended. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. I pressed play on the next one. Rustling. Heavy rustling. It sounded like fabric rubbing against fabric. Then a low, guttural groan. It wasn't me. It was deeper. It sounded wet. Like someone clearing a throat full of phlegm, but trying to be quiet about it. The sound was close, not at the door, at the foot of the bed. I skipped ahead to a clip marked 3:30. The recording started with heavy breathing, but it wasn't coming from a distance. It was right against the microphone. Someone was standing directly over my side of the bed, leaning down over the nightstand, their face inches from my phone, inches from my sleeping head. The breathing continued for 20 seconds. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the hardwood floor. I scrambled backward, pushing myself up against the headboard, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I looked around the room. It was empty. The closet was closed. The door was closed. I picked the phone back up with trembling fingers. I had to hear the end. I clicked on the final clip, recorded at 4:40 a.m. The sound of gulping, loud, frantic swallowing. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Then a satisfied exhale. Then the sound of the glass being placed gently back onto the wooden coaster. Clink. Then the shuffling footsteps moving away. The bedroom door creaking open, then clicking shut. And finally, faintly in the distance, the sound of a sliding door. I knew that sound. It was the sliding door to the utility closet in my hallway, the one that houses the water heater in the furnace. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't change out of my t-shirt and boxers. I grabbed my car keys, my wallet, and a kitchen knife from the block on the counter, and I backed out of my apartment, keeping my eyes on the hallway the entire time. I ran to my car and drove a block away before calling 911. I told them I thought someone had broken in. I waited in the parking lot until I saw the cruisers pull up. I gave them the key and waited outside. It took them about 20 minutes to clear the place. When the officer came out, he looked pale. He asked me to come inside, but told me to stay in the living room. They led me to the hallway. The utility closet door was open. Inside, next to the water heater, there was a small access panel in the ceiling that connected the plumbing between units. The panel had been removed. When the police shined their flashlights up there, they found a nest. That's the only way to describe it. Someone had been living in the crawl space above my apartment. They had lined the area with insulation and my things. They found towels from my linen closet. They found a missing sweatshirt I thought I had lost at the laundromat. They found wrappers from food I had in my pantry. But the worst part wasn't the nest. It was the notebook. The police found a small, spiraled notebook sitting on a pile of insulation. The intruder had been logging my life. There were pages and pages of entries. Marcus home at 6:15. Marcus watching TV, laughing at something. Marcus showering. And then the entries for the nights. 2 a.m. He is asleep. I'm going down. 2:30 a.m. I touched his hair. He didn't move. 3 a.m. I was thirsty. I took a drink. That explained the sore throat. It wasn't dry air. It was him. I don't even want to think about how I got sick or what germs he had sharing my glass night after night. But the entry that made me break my lease immediately. I don't sleep in silence anymore. I keep a fan on. I keep the TV on. And I never, ever keep a glass of water by my bed. My name is Alex. This happened about 3 years ago when I was living in a small college town in Ohio. I had just gone through a pretty nasty breakup, one of those ones that completely shatters your self-confidence. And in a total cliche attempt to reinvent myself, I decided to join a gym. The problem was, I've always been incredibly self-conscious. The idea of lifting weights in front of a bunch of fit, Judging people terrified me. So instead of joining the nice campus rec center, I signed up for this dingy 24-hour gym on the absolute edge of town. It was dirt cheap, smelled permanently like rusty iron and old sweat, and the fluorescent lights hummed loud enough to give you a headache. But the selling point for me was that at 2 a.m., it was practically abandoned. For the first couple of weeks, it was honestly perfect. It would just be me, my headphones, and that humming noise. It felt like a safe space. But then, on a random Tuesday, the atmosphere shifted. I walked in, swiped my key fob, and noticed there was someone else already there. I hadn't heard the door beep, which meant he must have been in the bathroom or something when I arrived. He was over in the free weight section, wearing this oversized, dirty gray hoodie with the hood pulled all the way up. I tried to ignore him. It's a 24-hour gym. Other people are allowed to exist. But as I started my workout, I got that prickling sensation on the back of my neck. You know that feeling when eyes are on you? I was doing dumbbell curls in front of the mirror, and every time I looked up to check my form, I could see his reflection in the background. He wasn't working out. He was just sitting on a bench, holding a weight he wasn't lifting, with his head turned slightly in my direction. I couldn't see his face because of the hood, but I knew he was watching me. I decided to move to the treadmills, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid. But as soon as I switched locations, he stood up and moved to the bench press station right behind the cardio equipment. He didn't lift, he just sat there. The air in the gym suddenly felt heavy, like the pressure had dropped before a storm. My music was playing, but I couldn't focus on it. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. After about 10 minutes of this, I decided I was done. It wasn't worth the anxiety. I walked briskly to the locker room to grab my bag. The locker room lights were on a motion sensor, and they were off when I walked in, which comforted me slightly. It meant no one had been in there for at least 15 minutes. I grabbed my stuff from the locker, my heart still pounding, and turned to leave. That's when the lights clicked off. I froze. It was pitch black. I waved my arms frantically to trigger the sensor, assuming it had just timed out, but the lights didn't come back on. And then, in the darkness, I heard it. The slow, metallic screech of a locker door creaking open. I didn't wait to find out who or what it was. I pulled my phone out, used the screen as a dim flashlight, and sprinted for the door. I burst out onto the main gym floor, gasping for air, and instinctively looked back toward the locker room entrance. The guy in the gray hoodie was standing right in the doorway. But without the harsh overhead lights, and with him standing in the shadows, I realized he wasn't wearing a hoodie at all. It looked like he was wearing some kind of skin-tight suit on. But the face was just smooth. No eyes, no mouth. Just a blank, gray slate, staring at me. I turned and ran to my car faster than I have ever run in my life. I could hear him running behind me, laughing. I could hear his footsteps sprinting faster than me, reaching up to me. Footsteps and laughter getting louder by the second. But he never caught up. Just before I reached the exit, I saw another guy standing there, holding something pointed at me. I moved and ducked and kept sprinting straight towards my car. I locked the doors and fumbled with my keys, dropping them twice before finally jamming them into the ignition. I sped out of that parking lot and didn't stop shaking until I was locked inside my apartment. I never went back to cancel my membership. I just blocked the charges on my card and called the police and told them about my encounter. I still don't know what that was. A prank? Some creep in a costume? I don't know. But sometimes, when I'm driving past that part of town late at night, I swear I see a gray figure standing in the gym window, just watching the cars go by. If you enjoyed this story, if it creeped you out even a little, hit the like button and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you think. You can check out other stories about haunted places, real encounters, and Home Alone horrors with the links here, or from visiting my channel.